Hello dear YouTuber friends, and I hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video. This video's all about setting up a complex flight controller from scratch. Now, I recently got hold of the Whirlpool Hotas system, Whirlpool Warbird grip or flight stick with the mongoose throttle. I'll link my review of that down below in the description. It's a complex Hotas system that didn't have any bindings in the sim. You may have a similar setup, whether it be the Warthog setup or one of the Thrustmaster offerings. Whichever setup and complex flight controller you have, you can follow along with this video. I'm going to give you an example of what I'm going to set up on my Whirlpool setup, and you can substitute that with whatever buttons or dials you have with your own system. It's just to give you an idea on how to set up a complex flight controller from scratch. So let's not dilly-dally. Let's get on with this video. So let's start setting things up, shall we? I'm in the Cessna 172 at Leeds Bradford Airport here. No control setup. Let's press escape on my keyboard to get to options and go to control options. This is probably what you're seeing. As you can see, I've got the Warbird D flight stick and the mongoose throttle there, but they're both default with no settings. If you buy an expensive set like this, or even a Thrustmaster mid-range set, likelihood is that you won't have any settings in there and you're just going to have to set everything up. That's the whole purpose of this video, isn't it? So on the flight stick, let's set up some flight control services to begin with. So I'm going to go to filter, and I'm going to go to filter to all to get all the possible controls showing, and under flight control services. So filter to all, you should see this then. Flight control services, primary control services. We'll set up our ailerons and elevator axis. Elevator axis is here, it's come up first. I'm going to click in the box there, start scanning. I'm going to move my stick forward, flight stick forward. It'll just give me the axis, the Y axis there. Joystick L, axis Y. Validate. I'll come back to sensitivities later. Don't worry about that at the moment. But we're just going to, when you alter the default profile, it says there create new profile. You have to do that if you alter the default one. So we'll just call that initial setup. That's okay. And apply and save that. That's our elevator axis. You can move your stick forward and backwards to see that. Well, okay. You might have to come back in and out of the menus, in my case, to see that white line moving. Shall we try that? So we'll go to filter. Well, we can just see it here. Open that. Move that forward and backwards. There you go. Now you can see the white line. So again, filter to. Let's just close these menus. Filter to all. And flight control services. We've got our elevator. We'll now set up our aileron. Scroll down a bit under flight control services. Towards the bottom you get aileron axis. That's your left and right movement. Click in the box. Click in start scanning. Move your joystick left or right. There you go. That's axis X. Validate. And apply and save. What I would do, people, when you do that, when you alter something, we're external at the moment. You'll be internal if you start in a new aircraft. I'll just press the end key, because I've not set up a button for toggle view. But the end key is the default on the keyboard to get into your aircraft. Move your stick forward and backwards. There you go. So forward is so smooth, this Warbird flight stick, I've got to say. Anyway, I can see that's right. I'm moving it forward, the yoke will go forward. Moving it back, the yoke will go back. Likewise, left and right, we'll move it left and right. It's all perfect, isn't it? Let's set up more flight control services. So we'll go back. Remember, filter to all if you want to change something, so you can see the controls, every control. Flight control services. I'll try not to go too fast. This happens. The windows sometimes appear over other windows. Never mind. I've got a twist axis on this flight stick. I've got rudder pedals, but you may not. So let's set up rudder. I'll set up rudder here. I'm just going to click in the rudder. Rudder axis, that's the one you want if you've got a twist control. Click in there, click and start scanning and twist your stick. Axis Z. Apply, validate and apply and save. Go back, just test that in the sim. Use your mouse for now to move down so you can see. If you need to hide your yoke, do that. I'll twist my joystick left and right. Yep, left will give me left rudder, right will give me right rudder. It all seems fine. Yoke visibility back on now, just in case we need to amend that. So there you go, we got some basic flight control services. All going well, isn't it? Let's continue. We'll go to filter all. Remember, filter all pretty much all the time now. And flight control services. Now we want some control trimming services. My flight stick, and I'll show you a picture on screen, has a trim wheel. And it's a button-based trim wheel, but it works really well. So in this case, I want to, if you've got an analog, you want to find the trim axis. Where is trim axis? Let's just find that. Most flight sticks will have button-based wheels for trim, I believe. There you go. Elevator trim axis minus 100 to 100%. That's the one if you got analog. If you got button based, to know if you got button or analog, click in search by input. I'm going to move my trim wheel up and it comes up as a button. There you go. If it was an axis, it will say axis whatever. Up, close and collapse those menus. Flight control services, I'll open it again. Control trimming services. So I want, because it's button based, trim nose up and trim nose down. Elevator trim nose up. Click in the box. Click and start scanning. I'm going to move my trim wheel down because that will trim me up. Validate. And apply and save. And I'll show you this working later. Elevator trim nose down. Click in the box. Click and start scanning. I'm going to move my trim wheel up to trim me down. Validate. Apply and save. Whilst we're here, guys, I'm just going to set up flaps as well. I'll show you the trim working in a moment, but secondary control services. So under flight control services, you'll find your flaps and secondary control services. I've got a button on my... Oh, actually, I don't want to do that. I want to go to my Mongoose because I want to set this up on my throttle system. I'll show you a picture on screen which switch I want to set up as flaps. It's a little sort of metal switch to the left there. So filter to all, which it's on already, on the Mongoose throttle. Flight control services, secondary flight control services. When you're setting up flaps, you want to have increase flaps and decrease. Don't set up extend and retract. It will retract and extend all in one go. So if you've got 4 flap settings, or say 3 flap settings, which is normal in a Cessna 172, 4 including flaps up, if you put it on retract and extend flaps, it will just do it all in one go. If you want it in increments, so flaps 1, flaps 2, it's increase and decrease flaps. So increase flaps. Click in the box, click and start scanning. I'm going to move that switch down to increase. Validate. Oh, I've got to rename this profile because remember, we're changing it from default. So I'll call this initial setup. Strap yourself in, guys, for a lengthy video. And if you're stuck on one part, I'll put timestamps down below for you so you can go and see. And increase flaps, decrease flaps. Click in the box and it will increase and decrease in increments, which I'll show you. I'm going to click that button up to decrease. Validate. Apply and save. Go back. Resume. Now, just going to use my mouse just to get a closer view of that trim wheel. Now, I'm going to move my trim wheel up. There you go. That'll trim me down. Move it down. It will trim me up in the air. As you can see, the trim wheel's working fine. Trim's working fine. Flaps. Now, can I hide that yoke visibility? I'll move that switch down. Yep. And if we go outside the aircraft, you'll see flaps extending. And as you can see, increases and decreases your flaps in segments rather than extend and retract, which will do it all in one go. So there we go, we know that's working. Let's move on with more settings. So let's continue with more settings, shall we? Press escape to get to options, control options. Now I want to set up a throttle. Now my throttle on my Hotas system, and it probably will be on yours, is actually on the throttle quadrant. Which makes sense, doesn't it? Whichever one you want to set up as your main throttle, click whichever, whether it's on your flight stick or your throttle. It's likely to be on your throttle system. I've got that selected. Filter to all, remember that please, chaps. Filter to all again. Your throttle is under power management. Power management and, of course, throttle. Now, I'm not going to go into setting up separate throttles, so if you want a 2-engine setup or 3-engine setup, not going to go into it in this video. I'm going to do it for 1-engine setup. I may come back and set up this controller for something like airliners in the future. Let me know you're interested in that. I know there's quite a few airline pilots around. If you've got a 1-throttle system, just set up throttle 1 axis. Not this one, just this one here, throttle 1 axis. This works well. Click in the box next to it, throttle 1 axis. Start scanning and move your throttle. In my case, I'm going to move it up because it was down. And there you go, it's axis, well, joystick R, axis X. Validate. Apply and save. Now I'm going to check this in the sim. I'm going to move it all the way down. Oh, did I just... No, I didn't click that. It's acting a bit slow for me, the sim at the moment. What is going on? Bear with me for a second. Oh, not quite sure what was going on there. It was really pausing for me. I got my throttle down. And to null my throttle, I have to move my throttle up. So I know that's wrong. I'm going to go move my throttle all the way down again. So back. Go to control options. Well, under filter assigned, though, so these are the ones we've got assigned on our throttle. Power management, throttle, click off reverse axis. I think it's ticked by default, but click it off and this should work properly. So if you're having those problems, just click out of reverse axis, apply and save. Are you going to behave now? Yeah, I don't know what was going on before. There you go, now it's behaving. I've got my throttle back and the throttle's back in the sim. I've got it forward and it's going forward. Whilst we're here, go to control options again. And I'm on the throttle system. I'm going to set up, let's let it just appear. I'm going to set up my mixture. Now I've got a flaps lever on my throttle, which I'm not using for flaps. I've set up flaps via buttons. So that flaps lever can now be my mixture. So I'm going to go to filter all. So whatever, if you got a lever and it's an axis, use that as, if you want to use it as a mixture. If you got an extra lever somewhere, follow along. Power management, mixture, and again I want mixture 1 axis. And I believe with this one it's 1 to 100 with the mixture. So mixture 1 axis, minus 100 to 100%. So I'm going to click in the box, click and start scanning, and I'm going to move that lever. There you go, it's axis Z. Validate. Apply and save. Oh, it is going very slowly for me this at the moment. Let's hope it speeds up. Not quite sure what's going on. Now that's wrong because I want... Now the engine's going to cut out, but don't worry about that. I want, when I've got that flaps lever moved fully forward, I want a mixture to be in. When it's backwards, I want it to be out. So again, go to control options. Under your filter assigned, power management. Mixture. Click off the reverse axis. Seems you have to do this when you're setting up power management systems. I'm going to move that flaps lever fully forward. So when I come back to the sim, it's fully in. And I can just move the magneto to restart the engine and all's fine. So mixture's in. I can test that, move that flap sleeve backwards a bit, move it fully forward to keep mixture fully rich at the moment. And that's all working well. One other thing I'll set up here while we're here, because I want to set all these controls up from scratch so you can see exactly what I'm doing, so I'm not cutting corners. Go to filter, go to filter all. I'm going to set up the landing gear. I'm going to put up, you can either have gear up, gear down. I'm just going to toggle landing gear. I'll show you a button on the controller where I'm going to set it, so it's my T7. Toggle landing gear, I just prefer that, so whenever I click that button down, just going to move it down, that switch. If I'm in an aircraft that's got a landing gear, Cessna 172 doesn't, of course, but Cessna 182 or an airliner, that will toggle the landing gear or jet or whatever. So there you go, that's power management. Let's move on. Okay, so continuing, we'd better set up some views so we can look out around our cockpit, haven't we? And look at our instruments and look outside, that type of thing. So what I'm going to do, go to options, control options. I'm going to set up the hat switches on the flight stick. Now, I prefer this. I do recommend that. You've got your hand on your flight stick, hopefully most of the time, and you can just use your hat switches if you have them on the flight stick to look around. If you don't have hat switches on the flight stick, and you've got hat switches on the throttle, set them up there. Whichever you prefer. I just prefer it on the flight stick. So filter to all. Remember, new controls, filter to all, camera, cockpit camera. I'm going to set up quick views. I'll show you a hat switch or PLV switch where I'm going to set these up. I prefer quick views. I'll show you both methods where you can look around smoothly as well. But I'll get to quick views. In fact, if I type in this search by name, cockpit quick, there you go. It'll just shorten the list so I don't have to scroll through them. Cockpit quick view right. Start scanning, move that hat switch right. Validate. Cockpit quick view left. Same thing, start scanning, move that hat switch left. Hope I'm not going too fast. I need to realise that not everybody's at my speed here. Now you would think cockpit quick view look up, cockpit quick view look down. I don't want them, or cockpit quick view rear. I don't want them. I'm going to click in this box where search by name to get rid of that writing I put in. And I'm going to put in here previous, pilot position. Just pilot spell it right. Position. There you go. Let's just start typing position. You've got previous pilot position, next pilot. So that's what I prefer with the hat switch for quick views. Next pilot position will take me over the nose of the aircraft for better landings, clearer landing. So I'm going to move that hat switch up. Same hat switch I'm showing you, of course. So on the same hat switch, and previous pilot position will take me down to my instruments. Click in the box, click in start scanning, and move that hat switch down. Validate. And apply and save. Whilst we're here, I'm going to click out of that, click on that blue square to get rid of that writing that we put in. Close the menu, cockpit menu. It's opened them all, hasn't it? Expand, collapse to collapse them all. That's an easier way. Click in the camera again, so we're on filter all. Remember that, so you can set up new controls, filter all. Click in camera. Anyway, you want to go down to instrument views. This is the one we want. We want previous pilot position, previous instrument view and next instrument views. When we click that hat switch down and we're in our instruments, we want to cycle between the instruments using the same hat switch. And it won't affect quick view left and right if you're down in your instruments. Keep that in mind. So next pilot position using the same hat switch. Click in the box, click in start scanning. Next pilot position, move that hat switch to the right. And it will say it's already assigned. This won't take effect if you're down in your instruments, don't worry. Validate. And instrument views, previous instrument view. Click in the box, click and start scanning, move that hat switch to the left. Let's show you this. Validate. Apply and save. So we've got some cockpit controls. Move that hat switch left. Go to the left. Move it to the right, it'll go to the right. Move it to the right again, it will take you to the centre. Move it up, it will take it up over the nose of the aircraft. Move it down, it will take you to your instruments. When you're in your instruments, next instrument view, previous instrument view, it will cycle you between your instruments. Isn't that neat? I always enjoy that one. Just press my B key to make sure my altimeter is correct. It is now. Okay, but you don't like quick views, you want to look around smoothly. Well, let's show you how you do that. Filter to all, we're setting up new controls. Camera, just type in, search by name, cockpit look. And it will just shorten the list. We want things like cockpit look up, cockpit look left. So I'll choose another hat switch, which is just above it on the flight stick. Cockpit look left. Start scanning, move that hat switch to the left. Validate. Cockpit look right. Start scanning, guess what? Move that hat switch to the right. Validate. So it's cockpit, it's not quick view this time, it's cockpit look left, right, look up. What do you think we're going to do? Move that hat switch up. So it's a separate hat switch, keep it in mind, people. You don't want it on the same hat switch, otherwise you'll run into difficulties. Cockpit look down. Start scanning. This is all you need. Move that hat switch down. Validate. Apply and save. We'll go back to the sim. Move that hat switch around now. Left, right, up, down. We can look around our cockpit freely. Prefer to use the mouse for that. I might delete them later. I might keep them in, but you know, I just prefer get hold of the other hat switch. I prefer those quick views. There you go. When you're moving around, you can see it might be difficult to get yourself back into your default position. We can fix that. Control options. Filter to all. We're on the flight stick again. I'm going to choose a button. I'm not going to show you which button I'm going to choose. You choose a button, which is... Well, I will show you. I'll show you the button I'm going to choose. Filter to all first. To reset my cockpit camera view to the default view. So filter to all, camera. Cockpit camera. I think if you scroll right down this list, be the easiest way. I mean, you could type it in as well, but scroll down the list. You should have... Oh, I'm going to actually type it in reset, because I can't find it at the moment. So I'm going to type it in here. Reset cockpit. There you go. Reset cockpit view. So reset cockpit will bring this up. Click in the box. And I'm going to click that button. And that's going to reset my cockpit view. Validate. Apply and save. Go back. Resume. So there you go. Press that button. It will reset my view. If I'm looking around with my mouse, maybe I just want to get quickly back to my default view. That does it. We'll do it in one hit, guys. External views. Let's go to control options. I'm going to use the hat switch that I set up for my quick views when I'm external as well. You can do this on the same hat switch. Filter to all. Setting up new controls. Camera. External camera. So we want external view, look up, look down, look left, look right, which are all here. You can have look up left, look up right. You don't really need to set them, I found. You just need left, right, up and down. Cockpit view look up. Sorry, external view look up. Same hat switch I set up for my quick views. It's just very handy for me to get to that hat switch. Whichever one's handier for you to get to. External view look right. Validate. External view look left. Start scanning. Validate. And external view look down, which is just a bit further down here. These are the only ones you need to set up to make it work. I'm going to move that hat switch down. And don't worry, if you're external, it won't actuate, it won't affect, because we're external, not in the cockpit. Previous pilot position, it won't affect that, because we'll be external. Validate, apply and save, but how do we get external? Expand and then collapse to close all the menus. I'm going to set up a button. It's under camera. Come on. Why on earth are you open? I'm just going to go back, people. If that happens, just go back. Filter to all, because I'm not going to go through or closing all those menus. Filter to all. Camera. Camera mode switches. So under camera mode switches, you'll have cockpit external view mode. Set a button. This time I won't show you, because I'm going to just set a button which is down towards the center of my grip flight stick. To toggle cockpit and external view. So camera mode switches, cockpit external view mode. Click in there, click in start scanning. I'm going to click that button, whichever button you want on your flight controller. Validate. Apply and save. So if anybody got the Virpil set, it's a button that's just right in the center at the back of the grip. But whichever one you prefer. Resume. I've showed you these views. These views work. You know, cockpit quick views and goodness knows what. But I click that button. Cockpit external mode. Going to move that hat switch left, right, up and down. I can scan around outside like you could in Flight Simulator X. Isn't that brilliant? Okay, let's continue with more settings. Okay, so continuing now, we get to some of the advanced stuff. Autopilot. So we go to control options. Autopilot, I want them all on my throttle system. I've got so many buttons on my throttle system. If you've got an expensive setup, you're likely to have two. So make sure it's selected. Of course, filter to all. And we'll just click in autopilot. We're going to be spending a bit of time here. So we want toggle autopilot master. This will turn your autopilot on and off. I'll show you which button I've got B1 set up. Well, I want B1 set up for this. So it will just turn on the autopilot master on and off. Click in the box. Click in start scanning. And press that button. Validate. Apply and save. By the way, I've restarted the sim. Next what I want is to activate nav mode. That would be autopilot nav 1 hold on. So scroll down till you see autopilot. Nav 1 hold on. This will turn on your nav computer. If you've got a course set up, it will switch that on. Currently, I don't have a course set in, but I can fix that in just a moment. So, nav 1 hold. We'll test all these in a moment. I'll show you, let me just go back there a second. I'll show you which button I want set up for this. It's right next to my autopilot master. So, autopilot nav 1 hold on. Click in start scanning and click that button. Validate. Apply and save. And we want autopilot heading hold. Now, which one would this be? Altitude. So, heading hold on, heading hold off. Is there a toggle heading hold, I wonder? I think there is. Yeah, toggle autopilot heading hold. So if you click it on, if you click that button, if you set up, I'll show you which button I want. If you click it, it will turn heading hold on. If you click it again, it will turn it off. So toggle autopilot heading hold. Click and start scanning. Start scanning, click the box. And validate. And apply and save. Now we'll just go back to the sim just to test these out. So I've moved my hat switch that I've got set to put me down in instruments. Click on the autopilot master. Autopilot's on. Click on the heading. You'll notice here it's in heading hold. So if I was up in the air, it'll be following that. I'll set up some switches, a hat switch on this so I can move my heading bug in just a moment. Now, I don't have a course set in, but we can quickly fix that. Let's just do, I should have set up a course just to, but I can just click on this entry, EGLL, Heathrow Airport, click on that keyboard entry icon again, and press enter down here, and activate. There we go, we got a course set up now, haven't we? That was quick and simple. So if I click on, while we got autopilot turned on, nav hold on. There you go. GPS will show if we're up in the air, it'll be following the magenta line. So that's it. And then when you don't want autopilot on, click on autopilot button. Let's just go back. I want to show you buttons we can set up. I'm going to choose a hat switch. Let me just go back to my throttle here. Try and keep people with you, Hudson. Don't speed ahead. So I'm on the Mongoose throttle once again. Click on filter all. And I'm going to search by name. Increase heading. Oh no, I'm just going to type in, sorry. Ignore that. I'm just going to type in heading bug. And it will bring up a shortcut here to increase and decrease heading bug. You best put in this on a hat switch rather than dial. If you put it on a dial, you'll notice it'll go very slowly, the heading bug. Because you've got to really turn that dial. It just turns in little increments. With the hat switch, it increases and decreases much quicker. I'll show you on screen which hat switch on my throttle. It's on the back of the throttle. I'm going to put it on. So increase. Click in the box. Click and start scanning. I'm going to move that hat switch forward to increase. Validate. And decrease. Same hat switch. I'm just going to move it backwards. Start scanning. Move the hat switch backwards. Validate. Apply and save. Resume. So if I move that hat switch forward, there's my heading bug in blue there. So if I was here, I would sync it to my current heading, which is roughly there. And then if I'm in heading mode, autopilot and heading mode, there you go. I click the heading mode button. It will follow the heading bug. Turn autopilot off. Shall we continue? I just want to set up a vertical speed button here. Control. Now, I'm on the throttle system again. I'll keep this nice and slow for you. I do apologise. I'm starting to race ahead a bit, aren't I? Filter. All. So filter to all. We're setting up new buttons, so always filter all. Autopilot. And I want to find toggle autopilot vertical hold. And what this will do, I'll show you a button and it's in front of a dial. So this is going to be important. It will allow me, when I'm up in the air, if I'm in autopilot mode climbing to an altitude, it will allow me to increase and decrease my vertical speed. So toggle autopilot vertical VS hold, basically. Not vertical speed hold. VS hold. Click in the box. Click and start scanning. I'm going to click that button I want set up. Validate. Now, that's okay. It'll bring up the vertical speed, but how do I increase and decrease that? Well, that dial I've got next to that button. If you scroll down, you've got increase vertical speed. Where is it? Increase autopilot reference VS. Click in that box. Do use it if you've got a similar dial on your throttle there. It works wonderfully. Click and start scanning. To increase, I'm going to move that dial forward. Validate. Hope you're keeping up with me there. And to go scroll down a bit so you see decrease autopilot reference vertical speed. Click in the box. Click and start scanning. I'm going to move that dial down now. That will decrease it. Validate. Apply and save. Go back. Resume. So I'm going to click the button to bring up the vertical speed number. This is my autopilot reference. I'll set this up in a moment. But if I want to climb using vertical speed, click the button. It'll bring up the vertical speed box. Move the dial I've just set up forward. So I'm climbing there by 900 feet per minute. Move that dial down and descending on the vertical speed and autopilot by 600 feet a minute. Move it back up to bring it to level. So I've not got any vertical speed set in. Click that button to get rid of the vertical speed number. Now, there you go. Didn't work for a second, but it has now. Now it's gone. What about setting up a reference autopilot? So a dial, and I'll show you which dial. It's on the left hand side of my throttle system. to increase my reference, what I want my autopilot, an altitude I want my autopilot to climb to. Remember, filter to all. We're putting new controls in. Autopilot. Filter to all. Autopilot. These are new controls. It will show us every control. And again, you want to get scroll down to increase. See, till you see increase. Increase autopilot reference altitude. Click in the box. I'm going to move that dial forward. Validate. And likewise, can you guess what I'm going to do now? Decrease autopilot reference altitude. Scroll down till you see decrease. This is going too fast, guys. I'm trying to keep it at an even pace, but do pause and go back to the bit. You may need to rewatch if it's gone a bit too fast. I'm trying to go nice and slow for you. Decrease autopilot reference altitude. Click in the box. Start scanning. Move that dial backwards now. Validate, or down in my case. I'm moving the dial down, I meant. Apply and save. Go back. Resume. If I move that dial, this is my autopilot assigned altitude I wanted to climb at. What am I at the moment? It's gone back to 900 feet. Press the B key. I restarted the sim, that's why. So I'm just under 700 feet, so I'll climb to 1800 feet maybe. That's what I want my autopilot to climb to. If I want to increase that, move the dial forward. Want to decrease it, move it back. Pretty straightforward. Hope that's not gone too fast for you. We're getting pretty advanced. Let's go to more settings. Very quickly here, we'd better set up some brake buttons, haven't we? We don't have any release parking brakes, and goodness knows what. I'm going to put release parking brakes on my Mongoose throttle. I've got a button which I'll show you on screen, right in the front of on the throttle itself. So I've got my hands on the throttle powering up. I can just press that to release parking brakes. Filter to all. We're setting up new buttons and brakes. There's only a few buttons here, but there should be. So there's only a few. So there should be something like toggle parking brakes, which is here towards the top. I went too far there. Toggle parking brakes, so it will turn my parking brakes on and off. Click and start scanning. And click the button. Whichever button you prefer, that just suits me. Validate. And apply and save. There's one more button I better set up here, and that's actually brakes when I'm on the ground. Now, I've got a pinky switch on my flight stick. I've got a trigger button that triggers different lights on my joystick. I prefer that as brakes. Whichever you prefer. I've got rudder pedals which I use as brakes normally, in fact. But just using the flight sticks for brakes, just in case. So, cancel that. Just use my trigger button. So, brakes. Start scanning. Press the trigger button. It's got a two-phase trigger button, but that will do. So I have to click it in all the way, which is fine. Validate and apply and save. Go back. Let's just test that, shall we? Got my throttle partly up. I can just test my what do you call it? Rudders as well. Press that button for brakes. Bring back the throttle and stick on the parking brake. There you go, quick and simple. Let's continue. Okay, my friends, we're getting near the end now, but we've got an advanced system here, an advanced setup. Why not do some advanced stuff? I want to toggle, instead of pressing this CDI button, so I'm up in my default view, for example. I've got to come down to my instruments, press the CDI button down here. Could be when I'm in a busy part of the flight, can be stressful sometimes. I want to set up a button on my controller to do this. When I do that in Localizer 1, so I want to go to Localizer 1 mode, I want to set one of my dials, one of my many dials I've got, to move my CDI, my course mode basically. Helps when lining up the CDI or course mode, lining up with VORs, or lining up with an ILS. You have to set it to line up with an ILS properly, that type of thing. I want to set a button that can do that for VOR 1. So, control options. Make sure your throttle system, or wherever your dials are, it's on my throttle system in my case, and yours likely are if you've got an expensive setup like mine too. Make sure that's selected, filter to all. We're setting up new controls. type in search by name. Search by name here. Just type in, to get set a button, it's toggle, just type in toggle GPS. There's only one setting for that. It's toggle GPS drives nav1. Strange name, but that will toggle between GPS mode and nav1 mode. I'll show you a dial I want set up for this. It's a clickable dial, so I can click down on that dial and it acts like a button. That's what I'm going to set up for this. So click and start scanning. So click in the box, click and start scanning, press that dial in my case. If you've got a clickable dial, you can follow along. If your dial doesn't click, just set a button for that. Toggle GPS drives nav1. Validate, apply and save, go back, resume. Let's try that. There you go, it will toggle me between localizer 1 and GPS. Isn't that brilliant? But I've not set up the dial for this yet. Let's set that up. Control options. On my Mongoose throttle system again. Filter to all, we're setting up new buttons. Now, search by name. If you just start typing in VOR1 OBS. You get two options here. You've got increase VOR and decrease, and you've got fast here. These don't seem to work on that dial, so ignore the fast and just go to increase OBS. I'm going to use that same dial, but I'm going to move it right to increase. Click in the box, click and start scanning, move that dial to the right. Validate. It's quite advanced, this, people, but we do have an advanced system, so only do this if you've got the other settings down. Decrease, I want to move the dial to the left. Click in the box, click and start scanning, move it to the left. Validate. Apply and save, go back, let's try that. So I'm in localizer 1. Move the dial to the right. There you go, it's increasing the course. Handy to lock on to VORs or an ILS. You have to set this up to make sure that your ILS course is correct. It's basically your course mode. And it works just fine. So there we go, you can do the same, you can set up buttons, and I'll link a video down below setting up my, Velocity 1 flight deck, where I showed you how you can set the similar buttons to alter your nav frequency or comm frequencies. I won't do it here, it's going to overcomplicate things, but you can see the range of what you can do on a complex flight controller. Last couple of things I want to do. I want to set up a couple of views. Let me reset my cockpit view, which I set up before. I'll go to next pilot position, so I'm over the nose of my aircraft. But I'm going to use my mouse. Scroll forward. I want that view set up as a quick view. So on a keyboard, have a keyboard plugged in, which hopefully a lot of you have if you're on PC. Just hold down Control Alt and 1 together. Control Alt and 1. That's now my quick view 1 on my keyboard. Reset my cockpit view, and if I come down to my instruments, instead of scrolling through my instruments, scrolling a bit there so I get a clearer picture of this, move my mouse up a bit, I'm going to set that as my quick view 2. So Control Alt and 2, hold them down together. And there we go. Reset my cockpit view. Well, okay, let's set these up on our flight controller. I've got lots of buttons left over. Control options. I'm going to set up on my throttle system. I'm going to have to move my throttle forward a bit so I can get to those buttons. That's okay, I'll move it back in a moment. Make sure you got your throttle selected. Or if you want it on your flight controller, lots of buttons on your flight controller, you can do this. I'm going to go to filter all and camera. It's in the camera menu, cockpit camera. You want to scroll down so you see load custom camera 1. And I'll show you a button I want set up for this on my controller. It's T4. So I'm just going to click in load custom camera 1. Start scanning. Set that up. Click that button. It's up. Remember, load custom camera 2 for our next view that we set up before. We've saved it already. We want to load it. I'll show you a button. It's T3 in my case. And start scanning. There you go. I've clicked that button. Validate. Apply and save. Go back. Resume. Now I click that button. That's the view I set up before. If I click it again, it'll take me back to my previous view. Isn't that handy? And the button to get to my map. It's just so I can press the button quickly to get to my map view. Or you could press reset camera view, whichever you prefer. So there you go. Go wild with that. Just set up some custom views. And if you've got lots of buttons left over, set them up as custom views. Listen, people, that's all the controls I'm going to set up. I am going to increase my throttle. I'm going to release my parking brake. I'm not going to show you this on screen, me using my controls, because it might confuse you if you're using a different controller. That's not the button I've set up. No, you've set up your own buttons, hopefully. Are my flaps up? I can quickly look down. Yep, my flaps are up. Don't need them with this runway. Just get off to takeoff speed. And we're taken off. Now, sensitivities. You notice I skip sensitivities. Before I do that, I'm just going to use my trim button I set up. Just to trim. And it works wonderfully on this controller. I don't have any sensitivities set up, people. These are to taste. Go to control options. Make sure you've got your flight stick selected, because you're selecting sensitivity options on your flight stick. Sensitivity. Move your joystick, your flight stick left and right. It's axis X for me. I don't have any setup. I don't need them with this flight. It's so fluid and I'm enjoying it. Yes, the Cessna maybe could do with a little bit, especially in the elevator. In fact, I'll do it just to lessen the elevator. I'm going to put minus and plus sensitivities. Make sure they're the same, because if you've got an expensive flight stick, it's all very balanced and you don't want to unbalance these, otherwise you get strange results. To minus 20. I'm going to keep my ailerons at 0 because I love the feeling with this fluid flight stick, regardless of what aircraft I'm in. Resume. What I'm trying to get at there, you set your own sensitivities up for your flight stick, for your Hotas system, for your complex flight controller. I can't tell you what's going to behave best for you. Are you heavy-handed, light-handed? For me, that feels, especially on this controller, it feels wonderful. That feels just right to me now. Got a nice loose movement left and right, a little bit stiffer in the elevator, which is nice coming into land, but it's so fluid. Let's get external, move around. Actually, let's get back internal. Press my buttons for my autopilot. Oh, have I got a heading hold on? Well, let's just come down. I've got a heading hold on, haven't I? Move that hat switch I selected before to move my heading switch. Come back up to my previous view. Oh, quickly need to get to my map view. I'm there. Let's bring the throttle back. I'm over speeding. Did I set an autopilot altitude? I'm not sure I did. Oh, I have. Assigned altitude, rather. Yeah, I kept that in before, but I want to lessen that slightly. There we go. And I want to get my localizer back into GPS mode and put it on nav. But I need to come with my heading. I'm just testing it. It's a waste of time me showing you my stick, because basically I've put it back into heading mode now. And we'll get towards that heading and it should lock on to GPS with any luck. It's a waste of time me showing... Oh, vertical speed. I can do that because I'm not climbing, I'm descending. Vertical speed, let's climb. 500 feet per minute. There we go. Bring that vertical speed box back up so I can see what it's doing. And there we go. Works wonderfully for me, guys. How does it work on your controller? Let me know. Anyway, that's how I would set up a complex flight controller like the Virpil I've got. There's more buttons I can set up, but that should get you going. Let me know your thoughts. Give it the video a like if it's been helpful. Subscribe for more. I do lots of these types of videos, and I'll see you soon.